Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And we are talking eclipse again. So thank you for those who told me that they want more of this with the Sun Rahu conjunction. And I got more of this. I got, there's some more. So, um, actually, I'm thankful. I'm not gonna give a shout out, so not to overflood somebody's DMs. But on Twitter, I ran into a person who was simply asking, "Should I see the eclipse?" And usually, as astrologers, the answer is no. Okay. That being said, that being said, um, if a person asks this question, I usually say, "Well, probably is a reason you're asking this question. With the sun on Rahu, you want to see that solar eclipse. Okay, Rahu is the nodes of the moon that are triggered by eclipses, sun conjunct in it. We are having a desire, okay, the head of the dragon, Rahu, to do something connected with the sun. Now, this may sound, I know that with my content, maybe I've gathered some viewers that are like not at all spiritual, let alone religious, and I'm quite a secular person myself. But you need to understand myths eventually are stories. And one beautiful thing I saw is how writers write about cosmology versus how scientists write about cosmology. Scientists use all the myths that you want in their articles about the planets, um, and so myths are important to understand something through a story. Okay, when we have the story of how something functions, then we can see, okay, what can I learn from this? Is also closer to how we observe phenomena in the natural world. Okay, if I want to learn about a herb, I begin to grow it, and then I begin to look at it, and I see where does it live, where does it prosper, and that would tell me a lot about what's going on and about this plant. And I also see things that occur in my life when I do this. Okay, so this is how you track something that is outside of laboratory settings. One of the ways to do it. And so the desire to look at something to do with the sun, together with Rahu, and to look at an eclipse is very likely because there's something there that you want to see. And then when as an astrologer, there's something there you want to see. Any answer I got, well, I saw the 2017 eclipse. Um, this is where I go first, I got to go back to my life immediately. But also, um, if you look at the visibility of the 2017 eclipse and the 2024 eclipse, they create an X that meets around Texas in United States. So of course, the 2017 eclipse is relevant, and if you saw this eclipse, of course, the 2024 has a complementary role to do with that. Um, Mundanely, they meet around Texas. The lines meet around Texas, but it doesn't. Even if you're not from the U.S., okay, then if you saw the 2017 eclipse, events are going to come into your life regarding to that. And Sun with Rahu might even mean that you're fated to see this eclipse. So I'm giving the answer publicly for those of you to whom it may be relevant. But it also means, regardless, that we need to look at what happened in 2017 in our lives and how were we involved. Okay, as a Me Too veteran, I was very involved. Okay, I was highly involved, and not only that, there I ran into somebody that talked about being able to look somebody getting confusing, like a boss getting confusing when they are confronted with a sexist joke they made. And then immediately I remembered that when what happened to me in academia, then a person violated my boundaries. When I looked him dead in the eyes, he couldn't look me in the eyes, and this was a person that could hold with his gaze 300 people, stop them dead in their tracks. It was a bit before COVID, by the way. Um, and so, but you must understand that the issue with, and funnily enough, when I went to a therapist, it was very difficult for me to see him. If I would wear glasses, it would be overwhelmed, and then if I would take the glasses away, I could see him, but I needed to adjust my sight. And this also was kind of a sign that I need to correct my vision um, in various ways, and eclipses are also to do with those. But also being overwhelmed due to trauma can cause difficulty to the vision, and this is addressing this. And so you see how those issues around the gaze were also relevant, and how these themes come up. I wrote Sugar Free Lemonade in 2017, November 2017, and I wrote Flying Bombardier on October 2023. Yes, 2023. Um, and so both were very associated with the things that were already relevant. And I remember, I will tell you a not so funny joke. I studied in politics and governance department. Uh, and again, when I mentioned this case from the perspective of today, I see it as, okay, how do we grow with love? Okay, not how do, it's not about bashing someone, it's not about taking down someone, and not then either. I was looking for a way out of it to heal myself and create a structure that is what I do want. Now is happening in the world. And one of the things that I saw back then had to do with world wars. Also, after I went to therapy, then particularly I was shown things also to do like with Iran, but I have to admit I didn't understand them. If you're looking for like the prophet that will tell you what will be, I don't understand that either. So I'm not a master this or master that. I'm just a person who was so traumatized and they were exposed to things. And when I was exposed to these things, it's also probably what changed my strategy. It's not changed my strategy because I have a strategy, but because I understood that there's something way, 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 way bigger than me and that person. And I remember joking that, when I get angry, and if we both get angry together, it's nuclear. I had no idea. And then from there stemmed the desire to denuclearification. Flying Bombardier actually deals with denuclearification. Today I present keys to unlocking denuclearification. Um, and so, um, like that's what's that's what's up, okay? If you see bigger than a certain layer of analysis, then you can take a look at the bigger picture. It doesn't mean that the details don't matter, but those things relate. So I want you to take a look at what happened for you in 2017. Okay, maybe you wanted me to veteran who was going to be an agent in attempting to do denuclearification, but I'm an outer planet girl, okay? And Pluto square is right now my transit. So, um, but you want to take a look. If you're watching this video, it's probably, you know, everybody in the new age say, "Oh, if you're watching this, it's probably fated." Well, this is a video about the sun and Rahu. If you are watching this, then I will see no views. But if you are watching this, then it's very likely that it's kind of like a eclipse. It's kind of like fated for you to see, but genuinely fated. Okay, It's not marketing anything, but an idea. I don't know. And even because Eclipse is going to change our worldview, so I'm not even marketing to you an idea, I'm just sharing information. Because my own perspective is fated to go through transformation, right? This is Eclipse. And so you're probably fated to see you encounter this video if you do encounter it. And I want you to understand Sun Rahu can give you a desire, deep desire to deal with the solar themes. You know, I woke up at 5 a.m. pretty much with the sunrise today, April 4th, as the sun conjuncts Rahu. And I began to speak and speak and speak. And even somebody wrote me that they want me to speak more, which is a very good compliment for a person whose main vocation has to do with speaking. Um, main talent has to do with expression. And so uh, I have to admit that you know that there's a quality where you really desire to do something, and you're fated to go there. Now, Rahu is more like you're so fated to go there. It doesn't mean that it might not change your world in the way that you think it would change your world, but you're destined to do this. You're destined to go there, and you're destined to shine in this way with the sun. Um, and that's it. This is where your soul is heading. You're exploring. You're meant to go towards Rahu, and eclipses them that making sure that you progress in life, you move on. Okay, so while there might be startling things, I will tell you this: before the Me Too, I was the person that actually violated my boundaries, okay? But before that, they were telling me, you must go to the United States, you must do a degree, you must do this right now because you're older than the students. I studied older. And you must do this. And everybody said, if you want a career in research, you must go to the United States. And they said, well, you gotta work out, okay? You gotta work out, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Um, and this was one direction, and then I was trying to go to this direction, and I ran into many things, including what happens in the fraternities and sororities in the United States. And I was worried not because of a student, because after you are a T in Israel, then you are accepted to second degree. You have to do the second degree again, but you can do TA-ship because you have experience. So I was more concerned from the position of a TA. And I went to therapy for myself because it is so triggering, because I needed to know what will I tell when I meet people that went through like group rape in a fraternities party before the semester even began. This is a real reality of even Ivy League. Um, and at the time, there was also a case with our dean that was offender. So all of these things were like, what should I be doing with my life? And I began to starve myself to save money. Um, and used I was taking amphetamines because I needed, not because of anything. But I was using those amphetamines to starve myself so that I can save money because I had difficulty like with work, and spoke about this in the previous video. And as I was going through these phases, I was heading towards the situation where, like, hey, the academia for me is, at that time, it was my home, my housing, because I got a grant for, like, the housing. It was the reason that I even got my grant for studies, because, like, it was not two, but very big, very powerful place studies had in my life. And because it was my workplace, it was the place I was living, it was my colleagues, it was pretty much everything. And if I would go to the United States, it would set up to be even more. And I was thinking, like, okay, if something happens, should I take a chance? Should I do what he said and just take even bigger chance to go there? Or should I decentralize things? And I understood after the meet that I should be decentralizing things. However, as I go to the working market, I remember that back there I was harassed as well. So the whole structure has to change. Okay? That was the onset. That was the onset. Because structure is changing. Um, and those structures, this person also was not particularly benefit from the deeply hierarchical structure all that much, but on the other hand, benefiting in other ways. And so now, um, when we go to the 2024 themes, these are themes that I already recognize. And by the way, also thanks to people that whose charts I learned through kind of like almost telepathic message. This person you need to know, that person you need to know. Things that were still leading up from the 2017. And you know, people tell you, well, you've so something happened. Get over this. Move on with your life. And you say, I want to move on with my life, but everywhere I go, and my therapist, I don't know what happened to him. Yes, and then I go out of there. So okay, how do I grow with love? I start growing plants, which is nice. I started growing plants, and then everybody told me, no, you need to get the cat. You need to get this. And I said, no, how can I? In the new house, they adopted me. And even got a turtle. So I just kind of like saved it or something. I hope I saved it. And so all those things were leading from this 2017, okay, set of eclipses, and they were not gone. And I'm like, okay, but why? Like, why is this good proceed? It's like another chapter and another chapter and another chapter. This set of eclipses is kind of like pushing on, not pushing, but being on the line of those eclipses. I remember I even told, they don't know what's energy. I told my psychologist. I told them I feel this is all of my stuff to do with, like, I don't know, relational things or even sexuality, to do with immediately the analogy of politics come. And I said, this I feel is preparing me for something, but I don't understand what. I don't understand what is going on. And I guess maybe in a very particular way he was involved with things, because he's seen things. He's seen the, like, I don't know if he's only seen the war or what was his role. You know, psychology, I don't have to tell you. And so this is where you really don't know. And when a person, of course, was violating your boundaries, then immediately, like, if you're suspicious before, then after that, it's like, at about this stage in my life, I don't know if the people who made contribution to me, what the interests are, or what, like, it's very difficult. And when you understand the structure, then and the pedo rings involved with people not being able to climb up the ladder because they're not trusted, and they only trust you to do as they say if they can blackmail you. And if they can blackmail you with something like pedophilia, this is the best trust card that they have on you. And this is and this is structural. This is why we see now, you know, they have everybody in this industry, in this industry, in this industry, in this industry, and then they use this card and they blackmail. Okay, um, but then what do they try to do in 2030? They try to regulate pedophilia. They try to legalize pedophilia. Okay, and this is very difficult for countries that deal with things like crime with legalization. Okay, I'm half Israeli, half Dutch, and legalization. I say about Netherlands that it's kind of like um, if you only have a hammer in your toolbox, every problem looks like a nail. And with Netherlands, it's very simple. Drugs, okay, we legalize soft drugs. We might legalize hard drugs. This was also the way people who dealt with crime, exposing crime, believed. Okay, prostitution, okay, we legalize this. And so if we legalize it, there is no crime around this. And it's neither right nor wrong. It is very complex to answer this question, but definitely when it comes to child trafficking and pedophilia, even if that would work to legalize things, it no longer is applying when it comes to this topic. And so 2030 agenda actually does try to legalize pedophilia. And when, even when you go to like everybody's most intimate relationships, of course it makes a difference. Okay, you date someone, okay, willingly, consensually, you want to sleep with them, and your sexualities are so that you could get pregnant or they could get pregnant. Yes, then you don't want the medical welfare all up between you, and you want to make sure that if you want the child, that you will be able to grow this child with love. If you don't want the child, then you should be able to have the ability to effectively do something about it, that you both have um, the say in. But if the body is inside the body of one of you, then you know they should be, for the favor of a child, should be able to not have the child. And those things, we think about them. But when it comes to abolishing child trafficking, we understand this is not a marginal problem at all. And it's not, one of those things that can happen, like, you could get hit by a car, like this, like that. But it is a designed problem. And right now, the solutions that are offered to the world are more leaning to child trafficking, okay? They're more leaning to legalizing pedophilia and calling it sexual education. It's not sexual education. And yes, and those are the things. Um, and so to do this, they also put people in regression. I was put in such regression. I was, you go into your child's state, and they ask, okay, how should children know? And from your child said, I don't know, somebody should teach them. And this is, of course, a child state. Okay, so of course, it's not to teach children about sexuality. It's not that you sleep with children. Okay, this is very important. Um, and they also, the use of drugs or psychedelics. Terence McKenna made a big research in psychedelics, and he got to get great things, but it also induces the indiscreet sexual encounters. And I don't say that from a place of shame and sexuality, but from a place of, okay, the willing consent here is problematic. Okay, so inducing psychedelic like states in people, in patients, okay, to get them to say, yes, this is what we should do about this, instead of actually treating the topic um, so that children can have a childhood and can grow with love, and also tending to the inner child of adult. Okay, so all of those themes are back on the surface. All of those themes are back on the surface, and there's a maturation, okay, going from one eclipse cycle to the polar opposite eclipse cycle um, uh, is a lot. You also want to look at what happened 9 years ago, but this is also um, a bit of maturation, okay, that you've been having. Now, I was talking about the eclipses and seeing the eclipses. I remember when I was in academia, this to pre-Me Too times, it was 2015, yes, 2016, 2016, 15, 16. Um, then I saw the sun, not the eclipse. I saw the sun. It was also not visible in Israel. Yes, it's not the 2017. And I saw the moon. Sorry, I saw the moon, a full moon. I was paying attention. I felt like I'm hypnotized by this full moon. Maybe it was with Neptune or something. And I felt like I'm hypnotized. And I told the group of people, like where we were, I said, "Look at the moon, look at the moon." People are like, "What is happening with this crazy person?" But I was, already beginning to look into astrology mundanely, because I was like, "Oh, this is such a fascinating thing to know that the Enlightenment took place in the age of, I don't know, that Pluto era." And different times in history, and I was like, "Oh, this would be very interesting." And surely enough, I was bringing together with a year, those who born 1960s something in the beginning, I was bringing together a Pluto-Uranus square that was also partaken in the sky when I was in academia. Okay, Pluto-Uranus square. Now we're turning to the Pluto-Uranus trine. Okay, so Pluto-Uranus square, so things from World Wars, now we're tending to the Pluto-Uranus trine. And one of the things I saw today, I was at the train station, I was taking the train, and then remember that I forgot to make sure my turtle has water, so I must go back. And as I was waiting in the station, um, a train, but not a passenger train, but with this big, the Mars, all those containers came through. And this is since childhood. We traveled by ship a little, so I really liked, the ports and to see everything. And I remember this site like from not childhood, but teenagehood. And I was like, "Oh, I'm looking like a child at this." And if I'm looking direct at me and the train goes through, then I barely see anything. And then I put the gaze. If I look too far, I don't see clearly enough. If I looked where I see things, I could see what is written on the containers, okay? And then I heard like a channeling voice said, "Once you see it, it has already happened." And he says also the good things. Um, and so this was something very, very interesting. And it grows compassion, but it also grows intention. Okay. And the word intention, I received a lot of channelings around Uranus and setting intention. Intention goes a long way with the outer planets, because you set a certain intention, and every planet will bring it about in its own way. And so intention goes a long way, like when you want to manifest things and so on. I was basically, when I was in therapy, I was working on channeling signs, where I did it in the beginning, manifestation techniques and stuff like that. And then after big crisis that happened, also, maybe I was the Pluto square of this person. I don't know. But I saw things to do with Pluto, and um, I saw it was a very tremendous, like psychic attack, but it felt like it's not like necessarily they psychically attacked me. It just felt like there was an overall vibe of psychic attack in everywhere. And I felt received things to do with Uranus, and that was intention goes a long way with Uranus. Like I started receiving these downloads or these channelings, um, but alongside other, like a lot of noise. And so yes, very, very weird, yeah, things. um, those things and those understandings come about to set an intention. First of all, it's kind of like, yes, we can set intentions. We can set intentions. Um, an intention is a pre-verbal stage, not just in the thinking in words, but pre-verbal, where you don't even think in words, and there's a certain intention that you carry with you. And this is powerful. It's kind of like you're an energy point. Because again, by the time we see something happening, it already happened. It's also true when you talk about the cosmos. Okay, if there are two great researchers that are doing uh, astrological view of earthquakes. One is Dutch, and the other is Philip Filipov, and they're both looking into the patterns of astrology, whether this, the geometry and everything. And you think about this, a pattern forms in the sky. Once it is perfecting, the event already happened, and this is where we say, well, this is where we see it usually, or once it releases, um, when it's personal to outer planets. Okay, for the sun, right now it is perfecting its conjunction with Rahu. Yes, so this is we receive a lot of informations about the sun and about eclipses right now. The eclipse is also solar eclipse in Aries, where the sun exalts. Back then in the 2017, there was already the eclipses in with Rahu in Leo, which is ruled by the sun. Okay, Aries is the sun's exaltation, but is ruled by Mars, who's going to have a prominent place here in water sign. So hopefully it won't be like poisoning of the water, although it is predicted and many people are going to try to manifest with this eclipse. We need to understand those who poison water, they're not thinking about life, they're thinking to take everything away, down with them. So there are a lot of people who are manifesting mass destruction of the entire earth, and a lot of people who are manifesting um, growing with love, and actually living, abolishing those habits, those addictions, those situations that and those structures, in, both inside our lives, in our practices, and in society, and in whatever that are causing these issues. Okay. Uh, And one thing, yes, I think about before, like the Me Too era, yes, I had cases where I was harassed and so, but I thought to myself, it is so unreasonable because, yes, there's some gay people, some straight people, but all in all, people with penis and people with vagina, they were not, or women and men in general, they're like opposite polarities. We're not supposed to be arguing. Like children used to come to the world, right, from this polarity. And so this is kind of like, we're not supposed to, why are we arguing? It's so strange. It's so strange, right? um and so the more I learn, so yes, there is the astrological issue, but it's also um really the desire to um, control resources and control people and control the fertility. Okay, and so there's our desire to be able to have good sex and and get away with this, in the sense that it's like, if we want children, we want them to grow with love, and we want them to come for when we are able to give them care and to provide for them, and so on. But it's also, yes, people who are, I guess, were so dysregulated and unbalanced that they took a place in in this world that is not healthy for them and not for us either. Because if you think about it, the people in the bunkers, I've been talking about the bunkers so much. It's fated, probably. But the people who could order like the total destruction of the earth, yes, um, whether you think about the colony in space or you think about the nuclear-proof bunker, then which is becoming more and more difficult. But um, it doesn't matter how luxurious the bunker is. First of all, you could be living in the most luxurious mansion. You would want somebody to be living there with you. Uh, and secondly, people are not really like this is how should I say it? Maybe for one or two mad scientists this could be, but there's something there that is just already maybe feeling so isolated from the world that the desire to destroy the world overcomes. There's difference from the desire to destroy the world, and it's like okay to die too, um, and hope that better life will grow. And desire to destroy the world and to hide in a bunker and rule, like everything is kind of uh, like it, that's a couple of decades a couple of decades. And the thing, oh, I will survive this couple of decades is kind of like, well, aren't you the guys that are keep doing the jail experiment where you already know what the results are? Okay, so you understand there's no rationality in the sense that it's not a good decision making to do so. Not just for humanity, but also for these individuals. It's not good decision making. Bad decision making comes usually from lack of inclusivity, both in terms of resources and so on and so forth. So these people at some point, maybe they have been marginalized in some way. And it's not always about the status, okay? It can be something related to identity. It can be, I don't know, many things. And now the lack of inclusivity has become a pandemic. So now it's like everybody is experiencing to being marginalized to some degree in one way or another, and so on and so forth. Because yes, we do need as humanity to be more inclusive in a way that doesn't marginalize other people. And this is challenging, it's genuinely challenging, but also at least we need to tend to it. Okay? We need to set intention. Um, and a lot of these eclipses is also about this. There's also going to be a comet that is related to this. And when we are more inclusive, you usually get both information that we didn't know that's going to be. For example, 73 oil crisis and 2023 supposed oil crisis. Yes. Um, Oil flows like water. There is more world peace than we know. If you look at the Cuba Missile Crisis, there is a direct line from the Pentagon to the Kremlin. This is how we denucleared, okay, the Earth in 1963. Some of you were born in this year. Some of you are in places that are rising and rising and rising. And so instead of to be eaten by the sun, um, is more important to go within and say, okay, where have we been now included that we weren't, because some of you are, and where have we been not inclusive, like, hey, we didn't think about this, or we didn't see that, or we know that that's coming up, but we kind of ignored this, or we kind of chose our battles in that way rather than in that way. And it's going to happen to each and every one of us. And so compassion is needed. Mars is in the sign of tropical Pisces, which is compassion. But also you must understand there is way more world peace than we know of. And so in terms of the people who are planning to stay for decades in a nuclear holocaust scenario, we probably are not going to see the bunkers on the radar. Alternatively, There is, you know, what is eclipse? It's eclipse of the sun is kind of like the present in its absence. I had a good professor, French professor, Jewish French professor, and she looked at collective forgetting, Dr. René. Now I am in Israel, you call your professors in the first name. And it's particular because she discussed the fact that people were mistreating her as a woman in academia in Europe, and they were not calling all the magister, that is like magister something professor, ta, 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 ta. And like in Israel, we just call a professor by their first name. Anyway, you're talking about collective forgetting, but you also want to take a look at like, hey, if you want to find something meaningful, you're like kind of like, okay, where would it be hiding? Well, it's probably not on the radar. So if you see the gaps between the radar spaces, those places are probably where it's at, okay? And so yes, of course, you have things in the vicinity and people hiding between people and so on. We absolutely do have that. But if you listened to, you know, the homeless person that tried to warn the police before 7th of October, if you listen to those voices in your head, amongst psyop, okay, it's kind of like if you filter out the psyop, you begin to actually get omens, not just noise, you know, and many people have these things. Yes, it's a part of what's happening. It's a part of the war, um, and so another thing to remember is that it's not only if you listen to these things, but it's kind of like what do we tend to? Because sometimes you feel like, oh, I am helpless. What can I do? Well, you can set intention. You can tend to. And be ready to adapt, okay? Be ready to adapt our vision. So especially, you know, right now eclipse coming in. Just this morning, for example, I saw that before the 7th of October, our Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu spoke on the phone with Mark Rutte on the 7th of October. This was the most important call that he made on that day before he announced to the public about the actual war. And so, what had he to do with the Dutch Prime Minister? Um, okay, there is opposition, by the way, to the now elected party, the PVV. And so it's kind of like, okay, this is very interesting information that we see kind of coming up around the eclipse. What had our prime minister to say? The first thing is there is a war. You call what? There's a war. Okay, what do you do? Oh, let's call some country's prime minister. What country's prime minister? Russia, China, Netherlands. Why Netherlands? Why Netherlands? Okay. And so, like, this is interesting. I think Lada said we were going to see information about more information about what happened in Israel. And I'm like, yeah, this is happening. And so, mind you, there is more world peace than we know. We simply don't know, all right? And so, but we also need to be reminded that a lot of the enlightenment thing, and Eris will also be involved here, is about being inclusive. And so, what stigmas do we have on what people? Do we have stigmas that only people from this type of origin do these type of things? There's difference between a cultural level of analysis, but there are also hidden cultural level of analysis. Do we believe that one religion is to, you know, Do we believe that atheist people don't violate children and sexually violate people? These do and those do. Okay. Um, but also, um, it is also not true to not recognize that um, the mask that is being used takes a certain life of itself. If you look at religious fundamentalism, you understand, yes, that this um, and this is where it's important to acknowledge this, but it's also important to understand how does this function and how is it funded. Just to say, I don't like this phenomenon. Okay, when I was Me Too veteran, I don't like this phenomenon that I go to a workplace and my boss harasses me. I don't like this phenomena. Now I look at the structure. Let's say take this person down, take this person away. Okay, let's say this person no longer, X no longer. Okay, what now? Did I solve the problem? No, it's probably structural. Why is it so that the people that come to this position elected of particular time, and then information began to arrive at me like, I don't know, oh, the structure of academia, the structure of the church, and the structure of the patriarchy, which was the church. This line of community. Oh, he talks like, um, you know, I wouldn't say. They told me something. Oh, he talks like officer in the army. Like talks like an officer. Sergeant. I don't know. I'm not expert on like army ranks. I'm like, okay. And then I looked at how they elect sergeants. I'm like, oh, they look at certain people, they have certain profiles that they pick. And then they train these people. And they kind of program you into a little bit of those things. And you have to kind of like, it's not that, it's not that I need to break the matrix and get away from this person alone. It's like both people need to break this matrix. This is what's happening. Okay? And so just the fact that I was not looking at this person in front of me only, but a deeper level of analysis, deeper level of analysis, deeper level of analysis, that is repeating itself in 2023 when, before 7th of October, okay, I was walking and there was this issue of the 15-minute city and so on. And as a person sometimes having difficulties to walk after trauma, then I used to walk like for miles and miles. I used to walk too much now. I'm balancing this, but as a person, then I looked at all the facets, and when I saw the design of this 15-minute city, I was like, Shirley, what are you talking about? The people that give the orders to buy, the people that own, the people that live in those places where they have the money to buy this apartment, even just a smaller rank, okay? These people, they have to have a security. These are public, either they're public in the sense that we see them, or they hold certain positions where they have to have security. These people don't go to the bathroom without somebody being reported. You know, how did the freeze die? The police told them, you either have so much security that you cannot even film, so we control your expression. He says, fuck you, and he died. Because the other ultimatum was like, you get no security at all. Forget what your opinion about this person, okay? But this type of ultimatum is not the police, but it's like they can only do what they're ordered to do unless they rebel. And then to what, to where they rebel is depending on with the people, like who are these people? And so you understand that those people that are given orders to lock down, some of them, They don't go to the bathroom. They might be living on an island, but they don't go to the bathroom without some security knowing if they go from the living room to the bathroom, because they need to take a. What freedom are we talking about? You know, they don't understand freedom of movement because this is, and some of them is even, some of them is because they wanted to be free. We also have to look at ourselves, right? But this is where we also get that people are leaders and leaders are people. And eventually we do get to live the life of the leaders. So, but also the leaders do get to live the life of the people. And so this is where the veil of ignorance, Rawls' veil of ignorance, comes into play. And one of my essays, where I was taking advantage of my academic freedom in my second degree, was about conjoining the theories of Rawls and not Feyerabend, no, this was my thesis. Habermas. And it's interesting because Habermas had speech impairment, and I think he had Chiron in Gemini as well. I have Chiron in Gemini too. And he wrote about communication and really having a discourse where we listen, genuinely listen to each other, and also about unification of kind of like, oh, we took from Judaism, we took like a judgment, from Christianity, we take compassion. Those teachings are very valuable. And, I took advantage, you talk about academic freedom, it was both the supposed freedom that allow the things that are inhibitory of well-being, okay, like trafficking, um, and other hands, I could do my thesis proposal in philosophy of medicine, departments of politics and government, and do whatever the f I wanna, um, in right there, okay. And write and do unification of a theory of like the poor person that had to read this. Okay. I was just like, let's take this theory, that theory, and make a theory that combines them both. And this was just an essay, okay? It's one of these mandatory things that people go to ChatGPT to or pay money for something to write. No, I actually went through this. And so, but the conjoining of the veil of ignorance and discourse that allows us to be exposed to more blind spots, as difficult as it is, okay? For 2 years, if you would tell me, oh, I was falsely accused as a man, I would say, I'm sorry, I cannot even hear about this right now. I'm going through being truthfully trying to solve an issue and kind of having to bypass the do you speak the truth, not speak the truth. It's like, how do we tend to the phenomena without the shame and blame? Like, how do you solve this? And so I'm not saying it's easy, and sometimes we must distance ourselves from the discourse because there's just so many trigger points, and it's okay. And sometimes we cannot put a trigger. Where I am right now, I was in the complete other opposite, and then it kind of like oscillates to the other extreme. So it is genuinely tricky, but it's also genuinely relevant. And we're destined to tend to those things, to have a new worldview around these things, to rethink, to also rethink structure and to rethink the separations that we have been creating. Some of them are imagined, but some of them are real. And that can itself, be very confusing. Saturn also deals with accountability or accounts. Things that are going to be eclipsed with Mars. Okay. Banking system, clear water, finances, real estate, and all of that. There could be eclipse, kind of like the April 8 bingo. And the nuclear holocaust, of course, I forgot. But this is like we're pulled towards, when Rahu is there, like we're pulled towards dealing with those things. If we willingly go there, that's lovely. When we're not willingly tending to that, then it's the eclipse will make sure that what we need to tend to, we're going to be tending to. And um, this is also where things can extremify, because some solution, if I go back to 2017 and I say, oh, why didn't I not, why was I not able to listen to the advice of like, oh, go to the United States, do a degree, do your PhD, come on, before you get too old and so on. What were the things that were holding me back? They're very relevant to 2023. And if I think again, like, why didn't I do the like driving license? Or why don't I, work as self-employed today? And what is going on? It's very relevant to what's happening in the world right now. It's like this all, and you sense these things, and so, but it doesn't mean that you should not tend to those things that seem like they don't have a solution. Einstein pretty much solved the war while sleeping under a tree. Yeah, we may not like his solution, but we wouldn't like Hitler's either. Okay? And you say, oh, there's a deeper level of analysis. Of course, there is. And of course, the stories that we are told, and so on and so forth, everybody, because Oppenheimer, the person who called and started made the call to start the Manhattan Project, that was Albert Einstein, okay? And as far as that's just and this is very interesting, and of course it touches to my life very personally. Also, when it comes to natural disasters, I was speaking, going with my friend and speaking with the researcher. One of them told me, "Can you develop an equation?" I'm like, "No, I can foul proof it if I know the theory, but I cannot develop a theory from an equation alone." But another one, I was talking about the levels of interference and points of interference, kind of like, chaos theory, and you know, you know, you know, by now you should. And I said, well, if we take a look at the earth, and I knew nothing about shamanism or anything like that, I would say, oh, if we look at the earth, kind of like a body that kills itself and has its balancing system and so on, then we look at like what we do for heart conditions, that we have this, it's basically a chip in the heart that balances your heart rate by using chaos theory, which is finding the interference points in certain constant intervals that sort of balance the system, okay, at least to what we know. Of course, in the long term, we cannot predict what it does. And I said, well, we could do this with the weather. He looked at me, and this was a darker complexion skin, and he went white. And I was saying to my friend, okay, this is mechanics person. I guess he doesn't want to hear about my big theories. It's not a physicist. He's a mechanic person. He's an engineer, but he doesn't want to hear about my big theories. I didn't know that this is practiced for years to control the weather, okay? And so this is also my argument with researchers who look, to look at the astrology of natural disasters. Yes, I also had this idea. I don't have I didn't follow through with like all the statistics, but we must take into account the fact that, if you have a nuclear test, and of course we don't hear about all of them, it's going to make a tsunami. It's going to make, I think it's very relevant. Does it send ripple around the cosmos as well? Probably. Can we see gravity as a wave suddenly in the age of Pluto and Aquarius? Well, better. Does this wave have audible abilities? Well, yeah, with Uranus and Taurus it might. And so all those things that I was doing in 2017 are very relevant in 2023. I live in a freaking desert and my crops are growing. They were like growing all the way into like the end of March with a little bit of snow with a little bit of rain. I'm like, this is good for my tomatoes, but I'm not sure it's good for my tomatoes. I don't know if it's good for the soil. Um, and those things also are very relevant, okay? Both for research and also for politics. If we don't have all the levels of analysis ready, then this is, yeah, I talked about it in the last episode. All you're going to do is look at voting patterns. Which is good because eventually you'll get to the fact that they're using your identity and trying to put things in your identity that's going to make you do things that you're not comfortable with doing. And then they do it to every everyday person, okay? I see it. So, also 2017 was when we were exposed to like gaslighting and what is gaslighting. But now we also need to understand, even today on Twitter, somebody was asking me, commenting to me, and I was like, you obviously did not read what I was saying. And he said, yes, but I tried to, because you spoke in such a roundabout way that I really tried my best to understand what you were saying. I could not speak to her directly. You got a watermelon, I got a Star of David, we're talking 2030. But more. Okay, but the fact that I could not speak directly actually essentified the message, because in terms of resources, we're talking about soil and soul, okay, energy, clear water, globally, yes, is the level of analysis the nation state, the UN, even who and with, is it a good level of analysis? We don't know, but we do know that if there's a nuclear holocaust, there is the people in the bunkers that we get, you get the bunkers. If you get the bunkers, then it's difficult to have nuclear holocaust. Then it's difficult to set all these people raping everyone. Because they might get to the bunkers. So it's like a tower of cards where the solutions are creating the problems and so when you say, okay, this solution is not available, then you see like a tower of cards, the problems begin to fade. Okay, and so because if there are bunkers, there are people who plan to try to stay alive in this. They're not all suicide folks. If they were all on a suicide mission, it would be a problem. But people act, and even with suicide, as a person who explored this suicide issue, then I can definitely say, you look for effective ways to unalive yourself, and then you realize that a successful death is a successful life. And success is not about the riches and the this and the that. It's about the well-being. It's about the rich experience of life that you have, and it's about whatever life means to you. When you feel, when, and it can be in the little moment of things, and it can be. I'm just talking and my cat comes. Hello. In those moments, okay? and the joy of these. Yes. Um, and we go through a lot of conquests in our lives, whether it's career, regardless of a gender. We chase stuff. We chase stuff. Okay. Well, usually it's both the things that on the way are interesting, but also the company. And this is, when people looking into death, they're finding a lot of life there. And yes, when we grow life, we also are exposed to death. And this is true. Um, so I think, I hope that was answering your more, your more request. So thank you for watching.